everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to my podcast, a very warm welcome to you. This is the Shiko Talk Podcast, and I'm your host, Shiko. My guest today is Ambassador Nancy Karigithu. She's an experienced maritime expert, a long-serving senior public servant of the Kenyan government. She is a Kenyan ambassador and a special envoy for the maritime and blue economy. I know her from my time working for the government of Kenya, and it is important to note that she is currently vying for the position of the Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization. Welcome to the Shiko Talk Podcast, Madam Ambassador. How are you this morning?
Thank you very much for having me. I am very fine, speaking from Nairobi, Kenya.
Wow, thank you for making time to come to my podcast. I really appreciate.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes. So I called you to my podcast because I learned about maritime and blue economy from you. And so for someone who is listening in and hearing this for the first time, kindly explain to us, what is maritime? What does the maritime industry involve?
The maritime industry is everything related with the sea. That's where it started. But recently, we've expanded that, particularly in Africa, to include not just the waters in the sea, but also inland waters, the lakes, the rivers. But mostly is to do with making economic sense out of the water, creating industries. You know that the maritime sector is essential for global trade. It's a major source of employment, both offshore and onshore. But most important also, it's very important for global protection. As you know, the global trade is the lifeblood of the maritime industry, and without it, the industry would simply not exist. The shipping industry is responsible for transporting and delivering more than 95% of global trade by volume. That's roughly 11 billion tons annually. Considering how quietly it works, this is almost unbelievable. And also considering that out there in the waters, we have more than 50,000 merchant vessels plying the trade. It becomes important because trade is the lifeblood of any nation, because no country produces all it needs, but then also no country is able to consume, would be able to consume what it produces in plenty. In fact, it's been said that without shipping that happens on the oceans, half the world would starve and the other half would freeze. And you begin to see the kind of work that shipping does for the economy. Half of those who would freeze are those who rely on energy that's transported from one place to another, that's either also produced from the ocean floors, and which is what we use to power our electricity needs. Like whatever communication means we are having, we wouldn't be able to do it because then we wouldn't have the energy to do it. Then the half that would starve is the one, of course, that depends on food imported from other places. You've seen what the Ukraine-Russia crisis has done to us with the blockade on the importation of grain, and you begin to see food shortages because food is not necessarily produced where it is consumed, and you begin to see the magnitude of what the maritime sector does for our modern way of life. I think for another example, I'm going to cite the case of the Ever Given. You remember recently that ran aground on the Suez Canal? Yeah. That was in 2020. And for the period that ship was stuck, $60 billion worth of global trade was held up until the ship was freed. And among the goods that were held up was wood pulp that is used to produce products like paper, tissues, and most notably what will affect us and we can all relate to, toilet paper.
Yeah.
So when we started having a shortage of toilet paper at that time, it was a result of the Ever Given, not as a result of COVID-19. If you remember those photos, those pictures
yeah.
of
In South Africa, everyone was picking up the last toilet paper on the shelf.
Now you begin to understand that it wasn't to do with COVID. It was a direct result of an issue in the maritime supply chain.
Okay.
When you look at the map of the world, somebody wondered long ago, why is it called planet Earth when it's quite clearly planet Ocean? Because 71% of the world actually comprises of water.
Yeah, true.
The oceans and seas connect us as states, as regions, and we become neighbors, kind of. We depend on a safe, sound, secure marine environment in order to preserve peace, enhance international security and stability, feed billions of people, and most important, foster human development, because we generate economic growth and activity and prosperity directly from global trade that must rely on the seas.
So you were saying that it involves everything in the sea. Does this include fishing?
Yes.
Oh, so I'm interested with this fishing thing, because I wanted to ask you, in your industry, do you deal with the fishing conflicts that go on around the oceans and the seas, or you keep off the conflicts and do the economic part?
The mandate of, I've worked with maritime administrations for almost 40 years of my career. And the mandate of the maritime organization, maritime administration, as obtained from the IMO, is to secure the safety, security, and environmental protection of the maritime domain. So we touch base with fishing, of course, in the sense that fishing relies on maritime transport. Nobody swims to go and catch fish. So for that, we are very, very connected. And then we also want to ensure that the people who man or who work on those boats are properly trained and certificated. Of course, within the Committee of Nations, the United Nations, we work together to ensure peace and security, but it's the United Nations that has the mandate. And then some of those conflicts are border related between neighbors, and IUU fishing. It's also one of the components of the Maritime Administration, illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. So we work with fisheries. The maritime industry is very huge. And that's why of late it started being referred to as the blue economy, because we are looking towards exploiting the resources that are presented in the maritime domain, but of course in a sustainable manner, so that we can not over-exploit, and we must leave something for future generations. So within this concept, we begin to see that the maritime sector is very wide, with a lot of interconnected, different activities. We are told that if you start to analyze today, there are over 87 different activities that we can do. 15 sectors, 13 subsectors, 87 different activities. So fishing, of course, fisheries becomes part of that wider family of the blue economy and maritime.
Wow, that's a huge scope. So I'm curious, how did you find yourself in the maritime career?
I grew up in rural Kenya, where the ocean was a dream for many of us, especially when we were young. We used to hear stories of how there is this big body of water. It's called the sea. And we would be told that the sea goes for lunch. We would hear fables. It comes back in the evening, and, you begin to get curious. Then around that time, I tell people that I'm the product of a global village. They say in Africa that it takes a village to raise a child. But in my career, I've been raised by a global village, because when I was around 6 years, I came into contact with an expatriate teacher. They used to be Peace Corps then. And she was very interested. She didn't have a family, and she was very interested in my family through my dad, who was his student. And she would come and spend weekends with us. She used to teach at Kenyatta. It wasn't a university then, but it was Kenyatta Teacher Training College. And my dad went to train as a mature student, and that's how we came into contact with her. So this lady adopted us, kind of, because she didn't have family in Kenya. And over weekends, she would come home and we would spend time with her. She opened the world for us as a family, taught us how to make paper boats. When it rained and the water would collect in puddles, we would then float those paper boats. Then one time, because she was seeing Kenya, she came to Mombasa, or rather she went to Mombasa then, and she came back with cowrie shells. And she taught us how these cowrie shells, there was a poem going with it. And of course, it was fascinating for us children because I remember the last line of that poem used to say that when I get a blue shell, I'll keep it for my brother. When I get a white one, I'll keep it for myself. And I'll hold it to my ear, and it will bring back to me, when I'm far from here, the murmurs of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, that's fascinating, because actually when you hold the cowrie shell to the ear, it has a sound, a humming sound.
Yeah.
She told us that's the sound of the sea. So I was fascinated by this sea, and, going for lunch, and, so big, you can't see the end of it. Of course, today I know that going for lunch was the ebb and flow of the tide. When the water is a lot, sometimes it recedes the shoreline.
Yeah.
Now I understand. But I was fascinated, and therefore, when it came to choosing schools, I decided to go and study A-levels at the coast. And that's when I saw the sea for the first time, and it was fascinating.
Oh, wow.
So I did my A-levels for 2 years. Then I came back to Nairobi, did my law degree, and somehow immediately found my way back to Mombasa as now a practicing advocate. And, the people working in the port looked so happy. I was working for a private law firm initially, but they looked so happy. They were paid well. They could afford their life, that I was like, as a new entrant into the job market. You're like, oh, you have a house, you have a mortgage scheme, and you can buy a car. So I launched to work in the port, and I knew, and in my mind's eye, I could see that my future was going to be in the Kenya Ports Authority. And if I got a job there, I would never leave. And God grants you his wishes. So I did get a job after 3 years, and I was employed at the legal department of the Kenya Ports Authority. And it opened my world to a lot of things. It was fascinating, working with the shipping industry, the logistics people, the labor issues, and all those things in that environment. But my world changed when, again, my global village struck, and I was offered a scholarship, this time from Canada. And I could study a master's in maritime law, and therefore off I went. Did my master's in international maritime law, and when I came back, I think my world had expanded. And even as I had said that I would never retire from KPA, I found myself, no, I want to do more. And I left.
Wow.
I left and set up a private law firm. And by good coincidence, IMO, that's the International Maritime Organization, through whom I had got the scholarship, are looking for experts in the region, homegrown experts from Africa. And with my combination of public service and then the training in international maritime law, I fit the bill, and therefore I was recruited by IMO to help governments in the region to establish independent maritime administrations. Independent in the sense that at that time, most maritime issues were dealt with in the Ministry of Transport, as in our case, headquartered in Nairobi capital, and the port is like over 500 kilometers away. And therefore, for quick decision making and for specialized management of the oceans, it was deemed necessary at that time to separate those functions, and therefore that's what I did for 11 years. Working with the region. Then at that time also, towards the end, I served as the maritime transport expert with the African Union. And by that time, my full-blown career had taken off. So that's how I ended up in the maritime sector.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting story. I mean, you might have gotten someone to help you with it, but all I can hear is hard work, determination, looking forward to a good life. I mean, this is all the things that any young person in the world would want. So I'm happy that you got your wish and you got your, let's say, dream career, because it sounds like it was your dream career.
Yes, that one I can assure you it was my dream.
Yeah. I'm saying that because some people end up in careers because of other things, not really, it's not their dream, like maybe just to make a living and everything. But for you, from what you're telling me, I can really hear that it was your dream to do anything and everything relating with the ocean and the sea. For young people anywhere in the world, they want to embark on a career in maritime. They are looking to start a career in shipping or the maritime industry. In a short version of, let's assume they're already in high school. I'm assuming, or rather, we do the same thing up to high school. So they're looking for like colleges. So how does someone embark on a career in maritime?
Let me say that the maritime industry is full of very interesting and rewarding career paths, but unfortunately, given the importance that it has in our lives, like I have told you before, it is not well known. First step I would advise young people to do is to learn about the various roles in the industry, and then decide which matches their interest. Because like I have said, it's 87 different activities. Some are on land, some are at offshore, that is in the water. The merchant navy is a very good employer. A merchant navy, that's the shipping industry. You've got officers like a ship captain, you've got a port manager. So the first step I would advise in these days of very easy access to information. It's not like ourselves where all we relied on is the library, and the library depended on what the books were. Is go and arm yourself with the information that it's available, and based on your choices of subject as a young person, then you identify where you want to train. Then look out for opportunities, because if you keep your eyes and ears open, then it's an industry that is very abundant with jobs. It's also, if I may speak for like where I am in Kenya, it's growing rapidly. And we're talking of shipbuilding. You remember recently the government established a shipyard, a public one, but of course we still have the private ones. We've got transport logistics for those who don't want to get their feet wet, managing the maritime trade as the goods are being, coming from ships, import-export business. There is the tourism and recreation nowadays with the cruise industry, and this is one of the areas in which young Kenyans today are going into. And of course, we also have the living and non-living resources, like you mentioned, the extractive industry, education, and also research. Most important, environmental protection, particularly nowadays with climate change issues, safety and security, planning. So there's a wide range of careers that young people can tap into. Let me say that seafaring is one of the few areas that is being a seafarer is one of the areas that can yield very high paying jobs and accommodate the low skilled, semi-skilled and very highly skilled persons. You don't get another sector of the job market that is able to deliver all that in once, that you can join the industry, at different tiers.
Yeah, that's good info, because what I'm getting from you, seafarer, you can literally start from anywhere. Nobody will start asking you for a master's in I don't
Absolutely.
know.
Yes, you get in at the floor level and work your way up. So you're trained, and also you're getting paid, getting experience, and then you work yourself up to the highest level that you can be in the ship. And this is very, very important for young people to know, because then you with commitment, with diligence and hard work and discipline, because those are all attributes that one needs to be able to fit properly in the sector. Because once you're able to conquer that, then you have a lifelong career, because the industry will always need people.
Thank you for that. So anyone listening, you go and research and Google about seafarer, merchant navy, try and see which campuses or colleges near you offer marine courses, and try and see if you fit in any of those.
Can I whet the appetite even more? These are careers that
yes, please.
they pay more than average what their counterparts will be earning on land. And therefore, it's not only important for them at the level of personal growth, but also at national economic development. Because if that money comes back home, then you can see the impact, the ripple impact on the economy. We're told that in the UK, the seafaring jobs pay on average 30% more than what their counterparts earn on land. So you begin to see how important it is for economic development of a maritime nation, but also for at individual level.
Anyone listening, looking for a career to join, or thinking that this is your career path, go research every I think they don't need to check only their region. I think they can get opportunities worldwide. So research on all the regions, check out where you fit in. Madam Ambassador, so you've been a long-serving senior public servant in the Kenyan government.
Yes, I have.
How have you managed to stay in government for this long? I'm asking that in the background of most senior public positions are really political. So I want you to tell me how you managed to have such a decorated experience in public service.
Okay, let me first state that I broke the mold, actually, in getting into public service. Like I told you before, I left the Kenya Ports Authority when I was a younger version of me, a younger officer. Then I came back now when I joined the Kenya Maritime Authority as the first Director General. And in that, I broke the mold, because I was joining a few women at that senior level. But in the maritime industry, it hadn't been heard of that a woman would be the head of the maritime administration in Kenya, a maritime, establishment. Because before that, the people who had held that role were senior male captains who had been to sea. Not just people like me who had no sea experience. And I remember when I joined, I had one of the first things I had to deal with was the politics that came with the job, because of the many who wrongly felt that they needed a man and a professional in seafaring to take the position, that it was only such people who would understand it. So what did I hope to achieve in the industry? And I remember that I found very, very quickly, much as I had grounded knowledge on the technical issues, or the technical skills, the professional side of the job, I needed another skill set that was very, very important. Most important, I realized that what would get me going is not what I had learned as a student in IMLI, as a practitioner with IMO, as a former employee of the African Union, writing policy documents and helping governments. I needed to know how to create and build and develop teams, how to keep those teams motivated to deliver no matter the circumstances. And I had to learn to navigate and bond with many diverse stakeholders, both within the public sector and private sector, build goodwill and support for the institution, and then also be able to garner support for the programs we were running, both at national level, within the region, because like I said, the seas, unite us, and therefore there are no boundaries, but then also globally. So learning to work with all those teams, I think, was one of the hardest character developments, if I may say so, that I had to undergo. But one of the things that helped me was very quickly being able to identify mentors and collaborators, people that could work with me, could help me, navigate the terrain, experienced public officers. That really helped. People that I could call on at any time of night with emergencies, with issues that I didn't understand. So the power of mentorship, was really ingrained in me, because it was the only way that I could deal with a multiplicity and, complex array of stakeholders. So being able to negotiate, being able to, to work with a lot of different people, that has helped me, and creating an ecosystem of like-minded people who can work with me within the public sector. That has really, really helped me. Resilience, being able to see beyond a situation. And one of the things that I learned and adopt to this day, that it's never about me. So I won't take issues personally in the public, the challenges that I get. If they come, I'll know that it's not about me as a person, as Nancy. It's about a particular set of circumstances. And if I can rise above that, tomorrow is another day. And therefore, my teams will tell you that one of my favorite mantras is a day at a time. When I joined the public sector, I had the advantage, or I had the privilege of having worked with the private sector for 3 years. And that really helped me because the kind of drive I learned there, the kind of self-drive and working without supervision is what I wanted to also bring into the public sector. And the other thing I decided very early on is to be the change that I wanted to see. So in this respect, I have an open door policy. If you come to my office and you will confirm even without appointment, and I'm in the office, I have no reason to send you away.
Yes.
The same thing with that hierarchical process in public offices. I've managed to work around it because I believe that every member of a team has a contribution to make. Yeah. And if you shut them away, then you're losing so much. Everybody has got their different perspectives, and it can be very useful. And I've learned that listening to all those different voices has helped me get the bigger picture and work in a different way. So for me, the open door policy, non-hierarchical setup has been very useful.
It means your people enjoy working with you.
Not all of them. Can't please everybody 100%.
And so what I'm getting from you, if you want to have such a long and a decorated career in public service, resilience plays a huge role. And as you're saying, making or rather getting mentors and collaborators, knowing who you can go to when things get thick, as they normally sometimes do in government. And so I've admired you from your public service work. And so I think this has led you to what you're currently trying to do. So if you didn't listen in from the beginning, Madam Ambassador is vying for the position of the Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization. And so I will ask you, why did you decide to run for this position?
Well, I think it's the culmination of all, it's the natural culmination of what I've been doing. Like I said, I have a career spanning almost 40 years, 38 to be precise. And I've worked at national, regional, and global levels, and leading Kenya's delegation to the International Maritime Organization for over 20 years. And within that space, I have gained the necessary experience. And I believe that I have a very good opportunity then now to take IMO to the next level, especially at this time when multilateralism is at a crossroads due to many of challenges that the industry is facing. The first one being the environmental crisis of climate change and decarbonization, ongoing digitalization, that is important. Then during COVID, I witnessed firsthand the crisis that the seafarers suffered. And therefore, it would be, one of my aspirations to be able to improve their welfare. So the human element and the welfare of seafarers is also one of the issues that I would want to deal with. Technical cooperation, as a beneficiary of technical cooperation in my training and qualifications, I believe that it's something that needs a different perspective, because it's central in enabling particularly developing countries and small island states and, such realize their ambitions and commitments to the IMO. So those are some of the issues that I'm looking at to be able to get my contribution to. Like I said, I grew up from the factory floor of the maritime sector, from the lowest echelons. I've been able to work my way to the top of the policy making decisions in my government. And therefore, I believe I've gathered enough experience to take to the global stage, and most important, become a bridge between the North and the South. It's never happened before. Africa has never occupied that position. And I believe that we have an opportunity at this stage, both myself as a country, to provide a safe pair of hands, which Kenya has been very highly reputed for, both within the African Union and within the United Nations. And this is the experience that I will be bringing into the IMO leadership. I'm from a country that has no vested interests in the maritime, global maritime sector. A country that has long been known for its strong record on multilateralism and South-South triangular cooperation, which is evidenced most recently by the co-hostship of the second United Nations Oceans Conference with Portugal, and also having been the first ever country to host the Global Sustainable Blue Economy Conference, which showed the linkage between the development of the blue economy and the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. We were also the first country to avail our judicial and prison systems for the trial and incarceration of Somali pirates. Therefore, from that record, I'm saying we are a trusted pair of hands. At a personal level, I'm seasoned practitioner in the maritime sector with vast experience from the global south. And I therefore believe I have what it takes to build the bridge between the north and the south on contemporary issues at a global level that currently IMO is facing, including their challenges.
Okay, so I'm hearing most of the reason is you're experienced, your career has led you this far, and definitely you're qualified. Is your family backing you on this?
Yes, of course. Yes, I wouldn't do this. I wouldn't take such a step of magnitude without the full backing of my family.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah. And the reason I'm asking this is because I mean, your work involves a lot of traveling, so I'm sure you've been away from your family for some bit of time. So I mean, what was their reaction when you told them that you're vying for this position?
I am lucky. I think I married a very good man who said it that the most important career decision that a woman ever makes is, first of all, whether she'll get married or not, but then most important, the choice of partner they marry. Because
anyone who's interacted with you, any young person who's interacted with you, I mean, you always tell them this, that when you're starting a family, it's a choice, so you need to choose well. So I'm glad you're a testament to that. That's why you've been able to do the things you've done. I mean, if we don't have family, most of these things we wouldn't get the support and the encouragement to do them. So, Ambassador, you are enjoying support from your family, you're enjoying support from the president, you're enjoying the support of a whole country, you're enjoying the support of the African Union. What does this mean to you?
Well, let me say that it's humbling and very exciting for me, because especially being a woman in the maritime sector where there is a lot of disparity, I don't take it for granted. I am truly blessed, because when you move into an endeavor like this one and you don't have the kind of support that I have, I know it causes a lot of stress, a lot of, challenge. So I am very, very happy that I've cleared that bit. Now I can go to the world, with a clean mind and with, without baggage. So it's humbling.
I've seen your manifesto. And so in your manifesto, I've seen your mission statement, and the mission statement says that you'll help IMO to achieve green shipping. So what's green shipping? And
green shipping, let me say that it's when people or goods are transported through ships using the minimum resources and energy as possible in order to protect the environment from the pollutants generated by ships. Green shipping promotes cleaner practices in order to enforce emissions control, efficient port management so that ships and goods spend the least time in port, as well as equipment management, the equipment in the ports, equipment that are used to handle the cargo. It requires a huge effort in every facet of the industry, such as the regulators, the people who oversee the sector. We're talking of the port authorities playing their roles, and also you and I as the shippers, the people who use the ships also carrying this forward. So, making sure that the partners we work with in terms of bringing these goods to us are climate sensitive, and therefore, we all work together to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from shipping.
So it's tied to fighting climate change. It's tied to greenhouse emission.
It's tied to the Paris Agreement. If you recall, because if you recall when the Paris Agreement was signed, shipping was in the background. Shipping did not take any We had aviation, we had other transport modes, but shipping was left out. But over time, it has been realized that ships also emit. They contribute 1.7% of GHG to the atmosphere, and therefore the industry also came under spotlight to play its role in terms of reducing the greenhouse gas emission. For example, being an essential part of the world supply chain, and with the effects of climate change becoming more visible, the CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions from the transportation industry, will go up. And therefore, if the shipping industry doesn't play its role, with ships using currently very heavy fuel oil, which is a filtrate from crude oil distillation, and with a very high sulfur content that is emitted by the ships during transportation, then we'll be missing a very huge opportunity of reducing the negative impact of climate change, because these are pollutants that are harmful to human health and contribute to disease, acid rain, if you've seen it, droughts and whatever. So it's also harmful to crops, ocean species, and also, the ocean itself. So the International Maritime Organization therefore took a very strong stand against these emissions and introduced the greenhouse gas strategy in order to also play its part, and also the IMO Sulfur 2020 also to also make intervention. Under the IMO Sulfur 2020, all ships must switch to an alternative fuel oil that emits less than 0.50 sulfur into the environment. And this came into force on the 1st of January 2020. And it is anticipated that this measure alone will lead to a 77% drop in the emission of pollutants from the ships, and thus reduce airborne pollution. And if it's not reduced, we know that we have a lot of bad impacts coming. So it's very, very important that the industry plays its role.
So tying that to quote unquote, your vision is a clean, safe, and efficient shipping that supports both the planet and the people. So what does this entail? What are the stakeholders that need to come on board for this to become a success?
Okay, let me first start by saying that clean, safe, and efficient shipping that supports both the planet and the people means that the whole value chain speaks towards the goals that we have set for ourselves, and therefore we are talking of low to zero emission, energy efficient, affordable shipping, which includes clean fuel, batteries, or both. We are talking of green fuels, biodiesel, ethanol, ammonia, hydrogen, and also clean electricity and natural gases. It's also talking of, both on the ships, but also both on the hovercraft. And don't forget, we also have inland waters, and therefore all of us must work together for common purpose to achieve that, with the overall goal being to place the sector, the shipping and maritime industry, on a pathway that limits global temperature rise to just 1.5 degrees Celsius. But the interesting thing about this is that because of the international nature of the maritime industries, all countries, all of us realize that we cannot achieve these goals, to decarbonize the sector as one country, as one region. So it makes sense that, the vessels, for example, visiting Kenyan ports, if they are shore power enabled, they must be able to use that facility in a port. And if that port is not shore power enabled, then they can't use the hydrogen that they are using, or the clean fuel. and the ships will not find the infrastructure for recharge in this other port. So we're talking of availability in terms of distribution and of new technologies becoming a critical issue if we are able to address the major technological differences between regions. And it calls for a lot of trust, a lot of collaboration, and a lot of cooperation. And let's say, it's not business as usual. It calls for a major shift in our outlooks, in our perspectives, and, being able to work together in order to pull together to achieve these goals. And everybody must play their roles: the consumers, the shipping industry, the ports industry, the government, the banks, and the finance institutions, because it will call for massive development of resources. And this is the only way we are going to achieve it as a global community.
Wow. So read your manifesto. I'm looking forward to see what you'll do if you find favor and they elect you as the Secretary General for the IMO. And so I wanted to just find out, do you have plans to incorporate the young people if elected as Secretary General for the International Maritime Organization?
Allow me to say that one of the major prongs of my campaign is diversity and inclusivity. And I wouldn't do that without bringing in the young people, as long as the other half of humanity, which is the women. Very, very important that I do that. Why? Because the young people, we are told that particularly in Africa, we are the youngest continent, and almost 60% of our population are young people. So we are talking of 100% of our future being in the hands of 60%, of the world's population. It's very important for them to be part of this, this journey. One of my goals is to bring them on board, to for them to continue, because COVID exposed us to the Achilles heel in the industry. That's the people, the people who work in the maritime sector are very, very important, and we must continue bringing them on board. And most important is to catch them young, and before they begin forming the career choices that they need, because shipping is so important to us. And therefore, due to the impact it has, then a lot of us need to know at an early age, not out of the curiosity that I had as a child, but because it is important for us, because then we need the young people to be part of the solutions we are looking for in terms of the employment, in terms of the environment, sustainability, which is something that interests them. And therefore, we need to start engaging them at a much younger age. And that's one thing I'm looking to start. For example, in the use of plastics. I mean, we know how much problems plastic gives us, and we need to eradicate plastics. But how will we manage if we are still not impacting this knowledge on the young people? So they need to be part of the solution, even in the maritime sector. And this is the only way then we will also be able to stem particularly when it comes to gender, for the young ladies, the young girls, we'll be able to stem the big gender gap in STEM fields, that's science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, which manifests itself at advanced career levels. We are able to impress upon them that these are the subjects you will need. Then we'll be having a bigger pool of talent in order to build on the skills we need for the sector. I also intend to use the very, very strong power of role models, so that we can help bring especially the young women to be able to develop the right self-perception for different career paths, and of course, that are available in the maritime sector. so that they are able to look further than the traditional, stereotypical ones that they've been conditioned to. So I intend to incorporate young people in the sector and also to improve the image of the sector. Now, when we're working with generation, the millennials and the generation Z, we need to think different ways of projecting the industry, because the need for skills is not just for the maritime sector, and the sector is competing with other interesting employment areas. So if we are going to catch this young generation, then we are going to have to do more to make it attractive for them. We've also learned from the COVID pandemic about working from home using technology. And we need to use that to create flexi working arrangements, because this is the young generation want this kind of, variety in their...
I get you. I get you.
Be able to work from anywhere. It's something that interests them, and I'm sure because it's for them, it's not just the money. When we were growing up ourselves and our parents, it was to get a salary to save towards your retirement. These are no longer valid. We're talking of a generation that is looking at different things. For example, they are looking for improved flexibility, like I said, diversity, and they want inclusivity, decent working conditions, and also enabling them to shape and visualize a strong long-term career, prospect, including transitions between working at sea and working at shore. So these are all things that are top of my head.
So I'm excited to hear that. Speaking to you, such a decorated, accomplished career, I'm sure there are sacrifices you had to make. So are you able to tell us some of the sacrifices you had to make to get to where you are now?
Let me first say that I'm a very private person. By nature, by my personality, I'm private. So public sector working put me right there on the limelight. People will say anything, and also coupled with that is what I call now vicarious wars, that somebody doesn't know you, but they are very free because they've heard from somebody. They don't get to hear the other side of the story. So that took some getting used to. But of course, the biggest sacrifice I would say I had to make is on family, not being able to spend as much time, because the exigencies of duty will call for sometimes sudden change of plans. Not being able to predict a life of predictability in terms of home life. I'm not a social butterfly, so that is no loss. But having time with family is something
that... family aspect is what you had to sacrifice more.
Yes, but let me say that I was also blessed with an ecosystem that I was able to rely on to partner and work with me along the way. Beginning of with my husband, my mom, his mom also. That really helped, and also friends who could be,
on call.
Partner. They could be on call, and being able to call a friend and say, I'll be home later, but please, if you could stand in for me. So maybe that's what made, my circumstances made me cultivate such kind of relationships, and also be able to cultivate very good relationships with my home managers. I'm lucky that I can tap into that. So give me stability and also some comfort that, yes, I may not be there, but the whole ecosystem that is supporting me in this role.
So that's something I wanted to ask, because currently I'm struggling with that, and just listening to you, I'm hearing that if somebody wants the kind of success that you have, you need to create an ecosystem that will run things when you're not there. So working on creating this ecosystem is any young woman's thing to do. And it's encouraging. Of course, anytime I talk to you, you always encourage me. You always have something wise to say. So that has really hit a chord with me, being where I'm at right now. And so as we near the end of this podcast, I would just like to tickle my fancy with some interesting things that I don't know if it's true or a myth. So I normally hear people say that when a ship is coming to a new port, a foreign ship is coming to a new port, that they need to wait for like a local a captain to come and help them steer the ship into the port. Is it true, or it's just stories that we hear?
I think what you've heard, it's something called compulsory pilotage.
Okay.
Compulsory pilotage is because arises as the first layer of protection for the country the ship is visiting.
Okay.
Because the captain maybe he brought the ship from wherever he came from, but and therefore he's very qualified. But he's not alive to the local terrain. He's not alive to, to the peculiar nature. So countries put that as a measure to protect themselves against accidents and the foreign captain and encountering something that he's not able to manage. So it's a something of self-protection for.
So it actually happens. It's not a story.
No, it's true. It's compulsory.
Wow.
Like, we have compulsory pilotage ports in Kenya.
Oh.
So every time a ship is coming, the local pilot, who is a ship captain, of course, he's qualified as a ship captain, goes out and in what we call a pilot boat, and it goes up a ladder to the bridge of that ship that's coming in, and then pilots the ship to port. Pilots in terms of giving directions to the captain. It's not like he takes over the ship, but he gives them.
Okay.
Because he will know that, we have a reef here. Like we have a channel that's busy, and this is, a ferry might be crossing. Then he guides the ship in.
Thank you. I had to ask that because I hear stories and people who don't, who are not in maritime, some things you think it's myth, and apparently somehow it's true. So
it's true.
Yeah, thank you for that. When people get to know you, what's the one thing they get intrigued to know that they didn't know before?
I'm a very private person.
Oh, so they are intrigued to know that you're a private person.
To discover that I'm very private, yes.
Okay. What does success mean to you?
I would say that it's a combination of many things. For example, as a leader is being able to mentor, to be able to look back and say, yes, I impacted on that person positively. Whatever I can do, for me, that's success. Sharing of myself. There are things in me that will not benefit me if I keep them. For example, the ability to mentor somebody to grow, to work with somebody on a journey for self-development. When I look back and I see the path behind me littered with people who are successful because of me, then that's success. I remember once when I was early in Kenya Maritime, I made it a point to, at the back of my mind, to recruit young people who could grow with the organization. And therefore, when we recruited at a lower level clerical, I wanted to identify people who could then develop. And I want to say that at one point, we were able to get 4 scholarships out of my middle level or clerical staff, and they were able to progress themselves into marine engineers, into captains. And for me, that is very, very important, because people who have achieved their goals, because I said a word, because I walked with them, because I encouraged them, because I nurtured and brought out something that they were not able to, to make, to realize. Then if they changed because of me and their lives improved and they are now, shining and thriving, for me, that's success.
And so that is encouraging, because it means anyone who is around you, you want them to achieve success, and your success is almost pinned on somebody else who is around you. So that's a selfless way to live your life, and I mean, that's encouraging. I would like Ambassador to give her parting shot. Follow her campaign as she goes into the election for the Secretary General for IMO. Support her online, support her on social media, and yeah, just waiting to see how that goes. And so, Ambassador, you can give your parting shot.
Thank you very much. I want to throw a challenge to the young people to come and join us in making this industry deliver to them the kind of jobs that they want to see. I know they want, they have issues driving them. For example, technology. Let them come and support us, because they are the generation that have grown up with technology, not like us who had to learn along the process. And I want to assure them that we will work with them to deliver a maritime sector that is able to satisfy their needs. There's a lot to do. It's challenging, but like I tell young people whenever I engage with them, I've never come across a tombstone with a plaque written, somebody, here lies so-and-so, and they died from hard work. So I want to encourage them to embrace the industry and to be positive about its challenges. Personally, I've seen it working with the young people I've worked with, and that's what I tell them. You know, it will be challenging. Yes, it's different. When you go on board, you're going to be on board a ship for 9 months. You're not seeing family, but as long as you've got your eye on the ball and you know what you're doing and what you're looking for, then you should be able to build a life. Otherwise, I want to encourage them and to tell them to read as much as they can about the sector and to find something meaningful that we can work on together. Other than that, I want to thank you, Shiko, for this opportunity to speak to your audience and to look forward to another opportunity. It's been very engaging, and you've made me come out with things at a personal level. And thank you so much. We'll keep talking.
Thank you so much for coming to my podcast. I know you're a busy woman. Just making time for me, I appreciate. And thank you for engaging us. Thank you for encouraging us. Thank you for inspiring, because I mean, some of the things you're talking about, myself, I've learned something, I've been inspired, and it's all we want in engagement, positive engagement, people to learn things. I'm sure my audience has learned something from you, and I appreciate you coming to my show for me to share you with my audience. It means a lot. Thank you so much. God bless you. And so to you who's listening, that's the end of this week's podcast. Thank you for listening. A reminder to follow all my accounts at Shiko Talk on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Watch and listen to all my content. Subscribe, like, comment, and share all my content. And that's it. Have a wonderful day, and God bless.